Oh yeah, five star LSU. I said they ain't ready for the LSU. No, they ain't ready for the LSU, huh? They ain't ready for the LSU. No, they ain't ready for the LSU.
What's up, everybody? Back again in the Tigers Avenue, episode number 15 coming at you. We got a little special guest in here with us today, one of our good friends, Bros and Lewy. He's here with us. He is a Hogs fan. He's going to give us some insight on what's been going on with the transfer portal. We're going to look at the ridiculous loss that LSU took on Saturday against the Hogs as well. I'm sure he'll give us some grief about that loss, but we're glad to have you with us, Austin. Let's get right into it here. Zach, let's recap this week in basketball. We got a tale of two stories for these two games. You go on the road against Florida on Wednesday. You don't have Xavier Pinson, and the people that you needed to step up, the players that you needed to step up to fill in for Pinson's absence, Darius Days, Brandon Murray, Eric Gaines specifically, they stepped up. And against Florida, they played a great game in his absence and brought home the victory in Gainesville, 64-58. I think that Darius had one of his best games in Gainesville, probably of his career. I mean, he put up 20 points. He had 6 rebounds. He was acting like the general on the court that Xavier typically is. Eric Gaines obviously started in Pinson's absence, and he put up 15 points and played a much more calm, a much more less chaotic game than what we typically see from him, and we really needed that from him. And Brandon Murray put up 10 points as well, and again, I continue to say how crucial Brandon is to the LSU team, and he is an X factor on defense. He's incredible. Zach, give me your initial thoughts on the Florida game. We also got to see Sharif O'Neal enter for the first time this season against Florida as well. Give me your thoughts there on the Florida game.
I want to say I called it on my prediction, thinking Sharif O'Neal would come in, and especially when you had Xavier not in the game, you had to think that he was going to come in and take some of those reps, take some of those minutes away, and he did. And he came in, and you could tell the game had to kind of come to him. He had to, he's been out of the basketball for a long time. I don't know exactly how long, but I know it's been a year or so. And so you could tell the game had to kind of come to him. And once he made that first basket, it was like, okay, here we go. He got you some rebounds on the offensive board. That was really, really good for us. He only had 4 points on the night, but those 4 points, those 2 buckets were really good, an important part of the game. And so I expect to see him a lot more in the rest of the season, and especially just taking some minutes. As I said this on the last podcast, Efton Reed's had a lot of foul trouble here in SEC play. He hasn't been able to really get going. I mean, he's a young freshman. He's got to learn how to play in the SEC. But Sharif came in, took some of those minutes away, and helped Efton get out of foul trouble a little bit because Efton still fouled out that game. So having Sharif is going to help a lot for when Efton goes into foul trouble or goes out of the game completely and fouls out. I think Darius Days, like you said, one of his best games of the season. We know early on he started out really, really strong and was putting up a lot of points. And then Tari Eason became the Tari Eason that we know now and is a baller. Tari Eason, though, against Florida did not have a big game. He was in foul trouble. He fouled out with, I think, 14 minutes left in the second half, and that's your best player. And Darius Days stepped up, scored 20, and really helped lead the team to that victory. So I'm really proud of them to go on the road and get that win. But as you said, it was a tale of 2 games, and the next game was a lot more rough.
Yeah, I wanna hit on something here as well in the Florida game too. Man, Eason, yes, fouled out extremely early. I mean, the dude played 7 minutes in this game. He typically plays, I think, on average 20 to 23, 25 minutes a game, and Eason played 7 minutes. So without Pinson and Eason playing 7 minutes in this game, it was incredible. I really thought if you told me Pinson was out and Eason only played 7 minutes because he fouled out, I would have told you we had no chance in the world to win in Gainesville. But man, like I said, Eric Gaines stepped up big in this game, putting up 15 points and probably had the best game of his career at LSU, I think, as a whole, since he's been here as a young sophomore. I mean, just was poised and made some really big shots at the end of the game to extend the Tigers' lead and put the game away. But when we go to the Arkansas game this week, on Saturday, it was the complete opposite story. Pinson's still out. He's still dealing with his knee injury. Hopefully, we will get him back this week against Alabama. But on Saturday, you needed Darius again to step up. You needed Eric Gaines to step up. You needed Brandon Murray to step up. And man, Darius Days had 3 points. Brandon Murray had 2 points. So when you take Xavier Pinson out of the game, and then Arkansas essentially takes Darius Days and Brandon Murray out of the game, you really had no shot. We, as a team, are not an offensive team, and we all know that. We know this team is all about its defense and creating turnovers and scoring in transition and getting in the paint, and none of that was happening on Saturday. When you would see fast breaks and transitions, we weren't capitalizing on those moments when we needed to, and we were missing transition buckets, and we were missing in fast break moments, and we missed open shots. And man, when you have Pinson out and you only get 5 points from 2 of your other starters who you rely on to score in double digits in a situation like this, I mean, you were asking to lose this game. I will say, I mean, the game ended up being 65-58, and with Pinson out and only one starter putting up double digits, and that was Eric Gaines, I would have thought we would have lost by like 15 points. Like, not even close. Thankfully, Tari Eason and Alex Fudge played good games and had 13 points coming off the bench. Tari Eason stayed out of foul trouble and played his 26 minutes. And the game was close until the very end, and the Hogs pulled away with a big shot from Jalen Williams at the top of the key, and then drawing the charge on the other end, and it really at that point had put the game away. The story, I think, of LSU losing this game was the 5-minute scoring drought at the end of the game. When you're already close and you're not getting production, and then at the end of the game you go 5 minutes without scoring a bucket, the result is what it is. Austin, I want to refer to you here on this, man. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, we were coming into this game 15-1. If we capitalize on this game, we're looking at being in the top 10. We're thinking, oh man, Arkansas is, what were they, 1-3 in the SEC coming in this game? I mean, we were thinking, man, we got this in the bag. We just went and won in Gainesville. What was different in Arkansas this Saturday that you hadn't seen early in SEC play that led them to this victory?
Yeah, I think you really hit on it. So the matchup as a whole was not good for Arkansas, even with Pinson being out. Obviously, that helped, that he wasn't in the game. But knowing how LSU has been playing defensively this year, turning people over, and then on the flip side of that, Arkansas, who all they seem like they can do is turn it over and over and over again. They just continue to do that. That was the story of the game too. LSU continued to do that. They continued to turn it over, or Arkansas continued to turn it over. But the difference was, it was shocking to me. They showed up the stat of points off turnovers towards the end of the game, and it was like we were winning that category 20-9 at that point with just a few minutes left in the game. But LSU had definitely turned us over way more. So it's just like you'd say, y'all weren't capitalizing off those buckets. But as far as the Arkansas side of things go, The thing, I mean, and you hit on this too, the scoring drive at the end was our defense that we haven't had all year. And that's been a staple in Musselman's team since he's been in Arkansas is we're going to turn it up on the defensive end. And each year we've gotten better offensively, and the offense will come, but the defense has always been a staple. And that has just not been the case this year for whatever reason. We have the ability, we have the guys to do it, we have talent, we have athleticism, but it just hasn't, for some reason, has not gelled. And so the last 9 minutes of the game on Saturday, it seemed like the defense, they were bought into the defense. Jalen Williams taking those charges. Those were big down the stretch, obviously, at key moments. So those are a few. I think that was the biggest thing was LSU not capitalizing on the turnovers, and Arkansas's defense at the end won the game for them.
I mean, like I said, the scoring off turnovers is almost all of LSU's offense. Zach, give us your thoughts on this game, what you saw, what you didn't like that you saw, and what we can do moving forward, maybe to improve, maybe what you saw from the Hogs as well.
Yeah, I mentioned this to Austin on text the other night. If LSU scores 70, this team they're going to win that game. I mean, the probability of them winning a game that they score 70 is very, very high. If they score in the 50s or 60s, then that's when you start to worry as an LSU fan. And the reason being, offense has been the problem the entire year, which is really weird to say, as we've said a lot, because the SEC, LSU fans, college basketball as a whole has been so used to LSU being a high-scoring offense. Scoring in the 80s, scoring in the high 70s, in the 90s and the hundreds against lesser teams. But this team just hasn't been able to find that guy outside of Tari Eason that is going to step up and get you, in the high teens, in the 20s points per game. When you don't have Adam Miller, we had to turn to who's it going to be. And early on, it was Darius Days. Now, here more recently, it was Tari Eason. But in this game, even though Tari Eason put up 13, I think Arkansas played defense against him well. They definitely put the clamps down on Darius Days and Brandon Murray, our perimeter guy. If you look at the box score and you see Eric Gaines is the leading scorer for LSU, that's not good because Eric Gaines is not a scorer. He is a facilitator. He's a flashy guy. Get you, a really, really amazing play every now and then he's a great defender. So LSU has to find another guy to come and step up whenever Tara Eason isn't playing well. Now, I think a lot of this is because X was out of the game, and so we'll see moving forward when X is healthy how LSU does. When Eason has an off night, when Days isn't having a great night, because that is going to really determine how far this LSU team will go in the tournament. As far as Arkansas, I wanted to ask Austin this question because we've also talked about it a little bit. Obviously, JD Note is y'all's guy. He's the guy that y'all look to score all the points. Is it Jalen Williams or is it another player, Austin? Who does Arkansas need to look to moving forward? Especially, LSU is going to play them in Fayetteville early March, and so we will see this matchup again. Who does Arkansas need to look to in the scoring category outside of JD Note if they want to move forward and get some big wins in SEC play?
Yeah, I think so. Early on in the season, early in the year, we had kind of the guys that Muss was going to run with, and you're just really, really struggling. And then you finally, even when we were winning those early games, the competition wasn't great, but we were pulling out wins. But the team was just not playing well. You get to SEC play, you struggle, and then you play Missouri, you host Missouri, and Muss changes it up and he plays Kamani Johnson and Trey Wade, two guys that maybe not to answer the question offensively guys, but energy guys that are going to set the tone early. And it was infectious and you could tell. And I think that has kind of helped this team as a whole. Now, offensively, you have to start with JD Note. And the game against LSU on Saturday was most evident of that because he was the one that was guarding Gaines, and Gaines was having a good day against us, but JD kept getting into foul trouble. Well, when JD was out of the game, the offense was pretty much nothing. I mean, there was no facilitating, there was no scoring. Whether he was the one scoring the basketball, whether he was the one facilitating the basketball, everything was running through him. And so when you get good JD Note, early in the season was not always good JD Note. He would fire up buckets that were out of rhythm, force things. But I think you pointed it too. I think a guy like Jalen Williams, who we coming into the season knew needed to take the next step. And that's kind of the case with, I think, Musselman's teams as a whole. They're going to look different every year just because he attacks the transfer portal so well. I mean, I think more teams are doing that now. More schools are getting on that train. But your teams are going to look different every year. Well, you look back to last year's team, who had great moments for us? Well, that was Devo Davis and Jalen Williams. Now, they were supplement guys. The core guys were Moses Moody, Jalen Tate, Justin Smith. When we needed a stop, when we needed a bucket, when we needed anything, we looked to those guys throughout the entire year. They were anchors for us. Those three guys are gone. So it was time for Devo and Jalen to step up. And I think Jalen has had his moments. I think Devo has regressed, unfortunately. And so those are guys that you were expecting to step up for you and to have that extra year of experience that is just not showing that. Jalen has come on strong, but you've got plenty of offensive weapons, plenty of talented guys. Chris Likes, he played Miami, averaged 17 a game. Stanley Mude averaged over 20 a games at his previous school. So there's guys that can put the ball in the hole. They just haven't been doing that at a consistent rate like we had with Moody, Smith, and Tate last year. Those three guys that were consistent defensively, consistent offensively. You're just not having that. So, but I would look to a guy like a Jalen Williams to spark things on the offensive end for sure.
Let's move here from the hardwood and let's talk some football. Specifically, you mentioned Musselman using the portal a lot, dude. Across all college sports, the transfer portal is becoming just massively used. Do we rely on training and bringing up a guy out of high school who doesn't have any college experience, or hey, can we go use the portal and get somebody who has proven college experience, and can we plug them in immediately? And you're seeing that across all of college sports in general: football, baseball, basketball, you name it. It's happening. And recently, there's been a lot of news with Arkansas and LSU transfers. It seems like they somewhat have swapped a few players. LSU sends 2 players to Arkansas. Arkansas sends 2 players to LSU. Namely, for LSU, they got Joe Fouché and Greg Brooks Jr. Arkansas from LSU has gotten Dwight McLaughlin and the defensive end Landon Jackson. I'll give y'all my thoughts so far on these guys specifically. But first, for our podcast, our LSU guys, look, LSU fans, this is what BK told us he was going to be doing to rebuild this roster. He had to hit the transfer portal, and you're seeing it happen. As of right now, LSU ranks number 1 in the 247 Sports transfer portal rankings. I mean, it's been a frenzy lately. You saw Joe Fouché. You saw Greg Brooks Jr. Now you've seen Noah Cain from Penn State, the running back. You've seen Kyron Lacey, the receiver from ULL. You saw Micaiah Garner, the DB from ULL. You've seen West Weeks come from West Virginia, the linebacker, the long snapper from East Carolina, Slade Roy. Most recently, on Monday, you got the punter from Notre Dame. This is going to continue to happen. Obviously, we also got Miles Frazier earlier on, the top offensive lineman in the portal from FIU. This is what's going to keep happening. There's going to be more news out of the portal for LSU. This is how Brian Kelly in year 1 is going to have to supplement this roster. Unfortunately, Ed Orgeron has left us in a horrific roster management situation. and he's going to have to use the portal, and he is using the portal to supplement. Zach, give me your thoughts so far originally on from an LSU standpoint, and then we'll get into this LSU Arkansas transferring guys back and forth thing. Zach, give me your thoughts on what you've seen so far with LSU in the transfer portal.
Well, I think it's something that really had to be done. You mentioned the roster problem, that just not having guys on the roster. I mean, we already know this. LSU went into the bowl game with 37, 38, 39 guys on the roster that were available to play the game on scholarship. And that is not going to be uh, able to help you win. If you have that kind of situation, you're not going to be able to win ball games, especially when you get into your conference play and you're playing other conference teams that are having 80 guys on the roster, right? There's going to be huge depth problems there, and so LSU had to do this. If you go and you look at Michigan State and the situation they had a couple years ago, Mel Tucker comes in and he rebuilds that entire program with the transfer portal. And look at what they did this past year. They had a good season. They went from, I think it was 2 wins or two, 3 or 4 wins. It wasn't a lot to what they did this year. And so the transfer portal, whether you like it or not, personally, I think it's good for college football. It helps kids. It helps the student athlete go after being somewhere for a year or two, and they know they're not going to be getting any playing time. They can make a move and go somewhere where they can get immediate playing time, and they can put out film for their career to potentially take the next step and go NFL. For LSU, though, I think it's huge. I don't know if they're going to sign the full 32 spots that are available. We know we've signed 13 from the incoming freshman class out of high school. We've signed these guys in the transfer portal. If you guys know, you can backfill scholarships if you don't use your full 25, in our case 32 this year. If you don't use that full amount that you can bring in for this class, you can backfill that in the next class. So I don't think LSU is going to use the full 32 here this year in this recruiting class. I think they're going to use that to backfill a little bit more next year when Brian Kelly has a full recruiting cycle to himself with LSU. But I do think, they're going to get close to the upper 20s in guys for this class, 28, 29 guys. I think they'll leave just a few spots for next year to backfill. But I think you definitely need to still go out and get spots where you have needs. Linebacker, you have to go out and you got to fill spots there. I don't think we have a linebacker yet in the transfer portal that's coming to LSU. We got to go
Wes
find
Weeks.
some guys. Wes Weeks is the only guy. Yeah, just announced on Monday. He's the only guy right now, but even he himself is kind of he's a 3-star, I think, in the transfer portal. And so he's not like, we don't know if he's the guy that's going to step in and play immediately. We don't know if that's the guy that's going to come in and start. You got guys that are going to come in. You got to find guys that are going to come in and they're going to make immediate impact right now. Because as far as we know, all we have right now is Mike Jones coming back and potentially Micah Baskerville coming back, right? And then after that, you have guys that don't have a lot of experience, correct? I think you still need to go fill positions at corner. You still need to, especially with losing Dwight McGlothern. That was a huge hit. To me, Reagan, it was a little confusing that we picked up a running back and a wide receiver, especially with the depth that we have at those positions. Because I think if you were to say where is the spots that we feel at least comfortable with, that we got guys there, it would probably be running back, wide receiver, and then maybe defensive line. But we go pick up a guy for a wide receiver out of UL. We go pick up, of course, Noah Cain out of Penn State. To me, though, Reagan, I think picking up Noah Cain could potentially give us some insight to Trevante Citizen. Of course, we know Trevante Citizen is the number 1 running back out of Louisiana. He still has not made a decision on where he is going to be going to high school or going to college out of high school. To me, Brian Kelly going and picking up Noah Cain might give us some insight into the potential that Trevante Citizen is not coming to LSU. We'll see on that. But if you add Trevante Citizen to that running back class and he does commit, you've got a lot of guys there, and you got to believe that at least one or two of them is going to transfer. So I think Brian Kelly's done a really good job. He's picked up some important key players, but I think he's still got a lot of work to be done. And as you said, there's still a lot of ways to go, and there's still going to be a lot of guys that are going to be brought to LSU via the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think we'll expect to see. With high school recruits and transfers, I think we'll see from about 5 to 7 more guys added to this class. My thought process on the Noah Cain, I know you said you feel maybe comfortable with running back, receiver, defensive line. I would say I would be more comfortable with receiver, defensive line. I'm skeptical at running back because, yeah, you got John Emery coming back. Yes, you have Corey Kiner coming back and Armani Goodwin, but there's not a lot of production between the three of those guys. There's not a lot of starting time. There's not a lot of play time. John Emery came in the 2019 season, saw very minimal, play. Last year he was injured. This year he was academically ineligible. Like he ain't started hardly at all. And Corey Kiner had snaps this year behind TDP every now and then. Noah Cain has production at Penn State. I mean, he started at Penn State and was named the starter at the beginning of this year. He battled an injury last year, was named the starter this year. So I think that was a production get there. Someone who's seen play, who's seen the field, and I think that was the reasoning behind Noah Cain. We'll see with Trevante Citizen. I expect probably 1, maybe 2 to transfer. I fully expect at least 1 to transfer out of the running back room. I'm not going to make a guess on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if 1 left. Let's get into this Arkansas LSU business here in the transfer portal specifically.
More like trading scenario.
Trading back and forth. LSU gets 2 guys from the Hogs defense, Joe Fouché and Greg Brooks Jr., and Arkansas gets 2 defensive guys from LSU, Landon Jackson, the defensive end, and of course the big one is Dwight McGlothern Jr. So to give y'all my thoughts here, some LSU fans were confused with the reason Dwight transferred because he was very outspoken when Elias Ricks announced his transfer and left Alabama. Then all of a sudden, Dwight McGlothern announces he's transferring, and everybody's like, wait, we thought you were staying. Like, why were you so vocal about Elias transferring and now you're transferring? Supposedly, and this is hearsay, so I'm not saying this is 100% truth or anything, but supposedly Dwight had a very hard time with the transition here with the new coaching staff. He definitely was upset with some of the coaches that were let go. He wanted to see some of them stay. I think specifically, obviously, Corey Raymond and Kevin Falk, 2 guys that he mentioned specifically. I think that's what you're seeing here is a guy who maybe felt uncomfortable with the new staff, was upset with some of the coaches leaving, and decided, hey, it may be best for me to leave. Of the 4 guys, the best guy is Dwight McGlothern. Dwight McGlothern is an incredible defensive back, and Arkansas got the best guy of the 4. But I would also argue that they probably got the least guy of the 4 in Landon Jackson, as he's not seen really any production at LSU. He is a four-star defensive end, but just hasn't seen any field time really at all. That could change at Arkansas. You never know, but you wish both guys well. And I would say Arkansas got 1, LSU got 2 and 3. I would say Joe Fouché of the 4 is 2, and 3 would be Greg Brooks, and then Landon would be the 4th guy. That's just my thought on it. So if you want to say Arkansas, LSU, who got the better deal here, I really think it breaks even. Austin, what are your thoughts on Joe Fouché and Greg Brooks Jr. leaving, and what are your thoughts on the new guys coming in?
I think this is what you're going to be getting with these 2 guys. So Fouché is a guy that I feel like he is fully developed. He's a guy that I think he's reached pretty much his ceiling, his potential. He's a guy that he's gonna be a good tackler. He's gonna come up and make a lot of tackles, especially in the run game. He's got some moments and some times where he's real sneaky when he can come up and make a play in the backfield too, off of a blitz. So, but he loves to come up and tackle. I wouldn't say he's a hard hitter, but he's a good tackler. If that makes any sense. He's going to be a solid guy, a pretty consistent guy, not someone that's going to get beat a bunch, but he may not make the spectacular play either. With Brooks is a little bit different. I think Brooks is a really good overall player in coverage. I think he actually has a higher ceiling than Fouché, but he's a risk taker. So he's a guy that's he's gonna go for it. He's gonna make the big play, but he might get hurt trying to make that big play too every once in a while. But he can make a big play in a big moment for you. I know one of his biggest moments was last year, Sam Pittman's first year, Mississippi State, pick six right out of the gate, made a big play, ended up leading us to our first ACC win, and I don't know, forever. So he's a big risk taker, but he's going to be a good player, and I think he's got a higher ceiling than Fouché. And then, like you said, with McLaughlin, super excited. Arkansas people, all of us are super excited about the transfer portal, the guys we've been able to pick up. It feels like Pittman has been able to win some battles that Arkansas has not in the past been able to win. Guys like Drew Sanders from Alabama, former 5-star. Jaden Hazelwood, former 5-star from OU. As a receiver. Now, he's not going to come in and replace Treylon Burks. I don't believe that at all. Burks, I think, is one of the best guys, probably if not the best receiver in the draft this year. So he's not a replacement.
He's going first.
Yeah, he's not a replacement.
First receiver, guy. I should say that.
Yeah, he's not a replacement guy at all, but he's definitely going to obviously help us. Because, Burks was more than half of our production on offense. So we'll see what KJ's made of this year, but without Burks on his team, but we're super excited about the guys we've been able to get and to be able to replace because we lost a lot of older guys that we've lost, and so it's nice to see us winning some battles that we haven't in the past with guys like McLaughlin and Sanders and Hazelwood.
Good. Well, I appreciate your analysis on the two guys from Arkansas there. We like the feedback. We want to know what we're getting here at LSU. These are two guys also that are from Louisiana, and they're getting an opportunity here at the. I know Fouché. This is going to be his last year of eligibility. He's going to be 1 year at LSU. Greg Brooks, I think, may have 2 years, possibly 3. I'm not sure, but these are two guys that are getting an opportunity to go home and play in their home state. Guys who maybe were not recruited by LSU originally, and now have this chance to do so. And I think that is what's happening here with Greg Brooks and Joe Fouché. Just an opportunity to come home and play for the Tigers. Probably, they've grown up. Fouché was from New Orleans, and Brooks was from Harvey, Louisiana. Two guys that probably grew up watching LSU as kids and probably dreamed of playing there. So I'm happy for them to be able to come home and play for the Tigers, put on the purple and gold. But, man, it does hurt to lose McLaughlin big time. These two guys may be really good, but they're not McLaughlin. He filled a role this year without Stingley and without Elias Ricks, and he played exceptionally well. Zach, what do you see so far from BK? It just seems like what they're trying to do here is recruit Louisiana, bring guys from Louisiana who were from Louisiana and want the opportunity to come back. Obviously, the two guys I just named, Noah Cain's from Baton Rouge, Micaiah Garner, he's from Texas, but he played at ULL. Kyron Lacey is a guy who is from Louisiana. Like, the whole staff is that is filled out are guys who have Louisiana ties. It just seems like BK's focus is get the talent who is in your state and lock up Louisiana. What are your thoughts on this so far? And maybe go ahead here and give us your thoughts on the closing of Brian Kelly's staff.
Well, I think when you look at that, just go look at the guys that he has hired. Who are the guys he has hired? He has hired guys that are going to go and recruit the state. They're going to go and recruit Louisiana. Of course, we know here on this past Monday, they announced Cortez Hankton, the wide receiver coach out of Georgia, passing game coordinator out of Georgia. He's going to come to LSU and fill that same position at LSU. He's coming back home to Louisiana. Go look at Frank Wilson, Louisiana. The list. Go look at Brad Davis. Which Austin, we appreciate you for in Arkansas for sending him back over to Louisiana because dude is phenomenal. He is the only coach that was retained in this staff, and I think that is because he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. Maybe the best offensive line coach in the SEC. It's very clear that Brian Kelly understands where he is at in LSU, and LSU is very fortunate to where they can recruit Louisiana and they can compete for national championships. If you lock down the state and then go get a few other guys, over in Texas, nationally, you can compete You can compete for a national championship, and you can have a lot of success from just recruiting the state of Louisiana. I think one of the problems that Ed Orgeron had is he star chased, man. He wanted to go and he wanted to get those big name guys, those five-star guys, no matter where they were located at, and try to bring them in. And you saw a lot of misses in the recruiting classes from 2019, 2020, 2021. You saw a lot of misses, and then once you had those misses, well, you had already moved on from other guys that were in Louisiana that would have otherwise come to LSU, and so then you had to go and find somebody seems like last minute to fill a spot. And that's why we're at where we're at right now with this huge roster mismanagement. Reagan, did you know if you go look at the 2019, 2020, and 2021 recruiting class, do you want to know how many guys out of those three classes are gone? 28.
A whole lot.
Yeah. 28 players, most of which were 5 stars and 4 stars, are gone. They're gone. They've moved. They either transferred. They either went to the draft. I mean, they either opted out. All these different scenarios. You just see LSU fans are starting to see why Ed Orgeron was let go. There's multiple reasons why Ed Orgeron was let go, but one of the big reasons is his failure to manage this roster. And now Brian Kelly is having to come behind him and fix all the mess that he made by going to the transfer portal and picking up all these guys. But I think he's doing it correctly by trying to go out and get coaches that are going to lock down the state. And you're going to see that in the next few recruiting cycles with LSU. You're going to see them get the guys in Louisiana that they should get. There isn't going to be as many guys leaving Louisiana to go to Bama, to go to Georgia, to go to Florida, wherever. Now you're still going to have misses because that's just recruiting. You're going to have some misses here and there, but I think you're going to see BK do a lot better job than previous staffs did with recruiting Louisiana.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I mean, that was one of the biggest reasons. When he's been asked, why leave Notre Dame to come to LSU, and he has said many, many times on multiple occasions, the state of Louisiana. I can recruit the state of Louisiana. And he said in his interview during the Texas Bowl, used to at Notre Dame, I'd have to get on a plane and fly across the country to recruit everybody. And if you look at Notre Dame's recruiting class right now, I can't remember how many guys in it, but 18 of them are from 18 different states. I mean, you got to go across the country to recruit for Notre Dame. And Brian Kelly was like, hey, we can recruit the state of Louisiana because it is a talent-rich state. I mean, this year alone, within like an hour radius of LSU, there's the number 1 quarterback in the country. There's the number 2 offensive tackle in the country, right? And then coming this next year, you got a 5-star receiver in Shelton Sampson Jr., who's in Baton Rouge at Catholic High. So, and year in and year out, and you can look at all of the LSU greats, they are from Louisiana. These are guys who grew up in Louisiana, who want to play for LSU. LSU has such an advantage from some other schools in the SEC and even in the nation. Louisiana has so much talent, and we are the only Power 5 school in the state of Louisiana. And if we can just recruit Louisiana and lock it down, now obviously you're going to go out to Texas, to California, to Georgia, to some other states to recruit, Florida, and you see that every year with just about every school. But we've really got to hone in on the state of Louisiana because there's plenty of talent here. And I mean, I can't tell you how many guys I look at Alabama and it just makes me sick to my stomach. How many of them are from Louisiana? I mean, Christian Harris, Devontae Smith, Slade Bolden, like guys. Christian Harris was in Baton Rouge and he's playing for Alabama. It makes me sick to my stomach. How many guys have left Louisiana and gone to Alabama because we did not put a fence around Louisiana and keep Nick Saban out? And Nick Saban was the one who kind of tapped into that and kind of made it known to the world that, hey, Louisiana's got some talent. And, I mean, he proved that while he was at LSU. But this staff, to talk about this staff, I love it. There is experience and age and wisdom, and there's also young, creative minds who can bring new schemes in every position. I think it's going to come together really well. I mean, you got Denbrock, who has years of experience calling plays. You have Matt House, who has years of experience calling defenses and has experience in the SEC. You have Joe Sloan, a young guy from Louisiana Tech, who was their offensive coordinator, a creative mind coming to be your quarterback coach. You got Frank Wilson, who's going to be that elite recruiter, the guy who is going to recruit Louisiana like nobody's business, the best recruiter in all of Louisiana. Cortez Hankton, a New Orleans native who has experience now at two different places in the SEC with Vanderbilt, with Georgia. I mean, he just won a national championship. You think of guys like Jermaine Burton and George Pickens and guys like that who come from that receiving core at Georgia. Brad Davis, a Baton Rouge kid who's now your offensive line coach, who, like you said, is probably one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. Jamar Kane, Kerry Cooks, Robert Steele, all guys who have experience and are young as well. I really like what BK has done with this staff and the experience it has and the youth that it has and also the focus that it has for the state of Louisiana. I think this is going to benefit LSU a whole lot.
Yeah, and I know like LSU fans, we're going to look through it in our purple and gold glasses, but we've got Austin on here. Austin, what I know you're just an Arkansas fan, but what was the reaction for other SEC fans, for Arkansas fans specifically, at getting Brian Kelly? What are the thoughts on LSU now that they have Brian Kelly?
Yeah, I think it was I think the majority of people realize, that's a big steal. I mean, because Notre Dame is not like there's some slouch. Obviously, for reasons that I'm hearing now from you, Reagan, saying that the state of Louisiana, and that's one of the reasons why he wanted to come. And I mean, yeah, it's a big splash hire. We kind of expected LSU to get somebody good. I mean, LSU is a good program historically, and so we expected that. I mean, it depends on who you talk to, definitely. Some people don't really care for the guy. Some people are indifferent, whatever. It's just another coach at LSU. I personally, I know it's a big hire. I mean, I know that it is. LSU is going to be good. Like, there's no doubt about it. LSU is going to be good always, regardless of who their coach is for the most part. And yeah, you had a bad year with Ed O this last year, but you also won a national championship with Ed O, and Arkansas Arkansas, copied the same game plan that y'all had. Find somebody that loves this school. We found that in Sam Pittman, and it's working out well for us. So hopefully we don't fall off the cliff next year or anything like that, like LSU did kind of this year. And I don't think that will happen. But no, Brian Kelly is a fantastic hire, and LSU is going to win. And like you said, LSU is completely stocked with talent, and you can drive 3 hours east or 3 hours west, and you're going to find more talent in states like Texas, Mississippi. If you drive a little further to Georgia, you're going to pull guys from there and always be talented that way. And so it's a great hire, and it's a popular name that guys are going to be attracted to. A guy that has won and has done it in the past, and kids are going to want to play for him. So.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your input here, Louie. You'll have to join us again for another episode to talk LSU and the Hogs. Hey, look, I know you stole one in Baton Rouge this Saturday, but you're going to have to suit up again, and you're going to have to face a healthy Tigers basketball team, and we'll see how it goes down in Fayetteville. Hopefully it will favor the Tigers this time. Hey, we'll put a lid on this episode. Louie, we sure do appreciate you joining us. We'll catch you next time in episode 16 in the Tigers Avenue. Peace.
Peace. Appreciate it, guys.
LSU Tigers. Who that five star?